Okay. Hello to whoever is listening to this from my corner of the world to your little corner of the world. I think this one is gonna be like the last one where there's a few different topics. So we'll see how it goes. Okay. I needed a talking session outside while smoking, and I've already blown up my friend's voicemail enough this weekend. So I was like, you know what? Might as well be productive and make a video. Let's start with, or I guess a recording. So let's start with the first few topics. The first one is, let me make sure this is correct before. Okay. A bad mom can't be a good friend. A bad mom can't be a good friend. And then I'll talk about another topic that my little sister spoke to me about. Um, and it's not a screenshot topic, but that's another thing I wanted to do with my YouTube is talk about some things that my little sister, you know, talks to me about. She is almost an adult now, but I helped give her advice a lot through her teenage years and her younger years and things like that. And since I want my YouTube to be for people of all ages, even though like my videos aren't very kid friendly, like toddler friendly, I think they're still good like for teenagers to hear, young adults, anybody over the age. It between the ages of maybe I think my stuff is good to start listening to around 11 for very mature people and women. And then of course any age after that is fine. Except if you don't allow your kids to listen to cussing, then no fucking 11-year-old should be listening to this. Um, so yeah, I am a firm believer that you cannot be a good friend if you're not a good parent, and you can't be a good parent if you're not a good friend. And the reason why is because as much as we don't like to admit it, our children don't belong to us. And this is something my pastor used to say. Oh, I forgot to tell my brother who I saw. I saw somebody that I used to go to church with last night at my job. And I was so happy to see them because I had just thought about them the other day. And, well, not them. I thought about their sister the other day. And I was like, oh, yeah, she did have that little sister. And it was very brief. And I had forgotten all about their mother. But I used to always find their mother very beautiful. ADHD. There we go. There we go. There we go. But it was a very interesting moment. The people we see and how they grow up. But my pastor used to say, your children are not your children. They're God's children, and He's just letting you borrow them. And my mom, she used to always clap when it'd be like, you're badass kids, you're a kid who's giving you trouble. And my mom would stand up and be like, preach, Pastor, preach. And then the moment he says, like, those kids aren't your kids, I'd be looking at her And she'd just be like, and I'm like, no, this is the time, man. You need to stand up. You need to fucking clap. You need to clap your hands. Why are you beating God's child? But it's neither here nor there. So I used to love that because it's so true. Your kids really aren't yours. Sometimes people can do everything right in a pregnancy and still have a miscarriage and not understand why. And I think sometimes it's just not meant to be at that time. And the universe is not letting it happen for some reason. And so that always made me feel like, and sorry if my voice is a little shaky, it's fucking cold out here. I have this blanket, but it's kind of not enough. Um, but, and I'm trying to choose my words carefully here because I do understand miscarriage is a very hard topic. I myself personally do believe I may have possibly had a miscarriage when I was about 17 or 18. I just never went to the doctor and got it confirmed. But I do think that you have to, it was very early on. I hadn't had my period for maybe like 2.5 months maybe. And one night I just woke up and it felt like I was floating in the middle of the ocean. And I was like, what's going on? And I thought maybe I had peed on myself, or maybe my mom had poured water on me and was trying to wake me up, but I didn't wake up. And I'm like, why is like all this water? And it felt like I was just sinking in it. And it was just covering, it was literally flowing on top of me. And so I pulled the covers away, and that was the most blood I had ever seen come out of my body. Um, ever. And I went to the bathroom, and it was just not fun. It sounded like, sorry if this is graphic, but it sounded like I was having diarrhea, but from my vagina. And I just kept feeling like this urge to like push, and I just kept pushing, it just kept coming. And I'm thinking like, oh, this is probably backed up period blood or whatever the case may be. But I then leaned over the tub at the same time while I was on the toilet, and I was pushing, and all the stuff was coming out of, my vaginal area, and I was just throwing up over the tub at the same time. And so here it is, there's blood all in the bathroom, there's throw up all in the tub, there was blood on the tub. It was just not fun. And when I finally stood up and was able to stand up, it just looked like a whole bunch of plastic was in the toilet, and I was just like, "Oh my God, what is that?" And I thought that they could have possibly been like all the old eggs, but I was like, "There's no way, there's no way um that many eggs, would have came out." But especially just after 2.5 months, maybe three of not having my period. And it had a like very light coat color to it, almost like clear or translucent. And it just looked like a pile of plastic just sitting in the toilet. And I actually had to end up like, I couldn't flush the toilet all. It ended up stopping the toilet, and so I had to like use the scrubber to like pull some of it out. then flush, then let some of it go in, then flush again. And I had to do that about 6 times. And at that time, I was suspicious of being pregnant. And I never told my mother until way after I graduated and had moved from home. And we got on the topic because my mom, I asked her, I was like, Mom, why did you never tell me when I was getting fat? And she said, well, you never got fat until your senior year of high school. Before then, you were always slim, and then you randomly just gained all that weight. And that's when I came clean to her and told her why I thought that was. But out of all of that, what really solidifies it for me is because I started craving raisins, and I fucking hate raisins. Fucking hate raisins. And for some reason, I just kept like looking at raisins and raisin cookies, and I was like, ooh, I just could have one of those right now. And I love those, and I need those, and they're just calling to me. And it was just, I just could not stop craving raisins for some reason. And so, after all that happened, I said, if I ever do get pregnant and it does, start to show way more and I actually confirm it, I hope the next baby does not fucking crave raisins. That must have been some kind of punishment. Raisins of all things. Like, why can't I crave things I love? Why can't I go back to some childhood craving that I used to like peanut butter? But then I grew out of peanut butter. I was like, I would be glad to even go back to peanut butter, but fucking raisins? It makes no sense. And that's what kind of made me think that I could be pregnant because I was like, I've never wanted raisins before. And I ended up some old lady. It was very synchronized. She was just like, do you want these bag of raisins? It was a huge bag of raisins. And I asked her, I was like, why do you have that bag of raisins? And she said she makes cookies and she made all the flavors or whatever. And so she has like a bag full of raisins. And I was like, yeah. And I must have ate almost that whole fucking bag of raisins. But it had like walnuts and stuff with it. It wasn't just the raisins, but or almonds, my bad. Those are not walnuts. Almonds. And I ate the whole bag almost. And it was just very odd. Almonds I like, raisins I don't. And so it made me very suspicious. So, all that being said, I try to take very much as much caution as possible when talking about miscarriage because I understand. I would love more than anything to be able to confirm for sure whether I was pregnant at that time or not. But that was almost 10 years ago. And I actually rather not know on that one because then I don't have to grieve a baby I'm not sure ever existed or not. But after Googling and hearing experiences and stuff, that usually is how miscarriages go and what they look like and things like that. And I looked up pictures and I was like, yep, that's exactly what it looked like. It looks like I hate to say it, but the meat suit that Lady Gaga wore to that one show, it looks like that, but with a whole bunch of blood. It's very unfortunate to say, but that's what it looks like. Um, so I just try to be very careful and considerate when it comes to talking about parenting or miscarriages altogether. But I think we should be very careful when we talk about how parents even come to be. Because once again, you can want it all you want, but if it's not meant for you at that time, or if the universe says no, or whatever, then unfortunately, it just won't work out. There are people who tried their whole life, and then finally they get in a better place, and then boom, it works. And then, there's times where, there's women who are unhappy and they're in unhappy marriages and things like that. And they try and try and try and it just never works. And then they meet someone and they're happy and, they're free and they're living their life and now they can't stop making babies. I do think miscarriages are a form of protection. That's just a belief I have. And I understand that people who have miscarriages sometimes and really do want a baby don't understand that. And I can understand why as well. But it's just always been a very big notion to me that I don't think it's happening for no reason. I think there's a reason miscarriages happen. Um, that only, you know, God can explain, so to speak. And so that was the first thing that taught me that we don't get to decide when we have children. No matter how much we try, we don't get to decide. And that's what kind of helped me realize your babies don't belong to you. Sometimes you can have babies and unfortunately they can pass at a very young age for no reason, or they could be born and then, gone the next day for no reason. And it's your children are not yours. They're just not. And so when you see them as yours, or you see them as something you own, or something that doesn't have a say without you, and things like that, I think we forget to raise our children as individuals, and we forget to see them as individuals. We forget to see them as people who are allowed to speak their mind. We forget to see them as people are who have a mind of their own to begin with. Um, and it becomes very, very much of a dangerous territory because our kids can be trying to explain themselves to us and we just shut them down. And it can cause them, kind of like me, to develop anxiety or to develop certain um how do you say, certain habits of over explaining because they're afraid they'll get in trouble, or they're afraid, like, this person won't understand if I don't explain every detail and things like that. Um, it raises very scared children. Um, and that's kind of, our kids are not just our children, they really are, you know, people we grow up to know as adults. And sometimes you hear parents say, "Oh, my daughter's my best friend," or "My son's my best friend," or you hear, children say, "Oh, my mom's my best friend," or "My dad's my best friend." And I think growing up specifically as well in Black households, we know very well our parents are not one of our little friends. Okay, they're not one of our little friends. But when we are taught that friendship should feel safe and friendship should feel caring and loving and welcoming and understanding, when our parents say, "Oh, I'm not your friend," it then causes that thought of disconnect. Like, okay, well, you're not my friend then. Hmm. So you're not loving, you're not caring, you're not this, you're not that. Especially if they aren't that as a parent either. Because they can say, hey, we're not friends, but I do love you, I do care for you, I do want to joke with you and play with you and have a good time with you. Because then it still can be somewhat of a healthy relationship. But if you're always just your child's parent, once again, you forget to see them as individuals. You really, really do. And it's for, an example, my dad, he's like, no, you need to make more money. You need to do this. You need to do that. You need to. And I'm just like, sir, capitalism, not my thing. Not my thing. I don't want to be the richest person in the world. It's just not my thing. I don't want to make all that money if I don't need it. And there's other ways around it. And I don't think, and this is probably a problem for me, I don't think about my money as just me. I think about my money in community. So, once again, where is my dollar going? Why is it going to that place? Okay, if I have this money left over, instead of just saving it or putting it aside or hoarding it for another day, maybe I can, go and buy, a few things of toothpaste for the homeless, or maybe I can, go and like the other day I had a few bucks left over and I was like, you know what? This person can't get on the bus. I'm gonna just pay their bus ticket for them. I did that twice actually last week. There's this other guy. I am very minimalist. I only have two pair of shoes right now. But yesterday I saw this guy on the bus and he had on two pair of mixed matching shoes. He was homeless. And so I'm gonna carry those shoes around. And if I see him again, I will give him those shoes. Hopefully he can fit them. Um, I should have asked him what size shoe he wore, but he was already getting off the bus at that time. But, and maybe I'll just, wait to see him again and then ask him and be like, okay, in a few days, meet me here on the bus again and I'll give you these shoes. So that's what I'm planning on doing. And so it's like I don't have much, but I don't need much. I'm very much, as long as I have, a few things I can alternate between and switch out, eh, the rest, it doesn't matter to me because other people need it. And once again, if we can better the world, then the world can be better for us. So why hoard all that energy when I could pass it around and share it around, and then it can go around this big, huge circle we live in and eventually come back to me? That's the way I think. But of course, my dad does not see me as an individual with my own mind. He's seeing me as his daughter, who he wants to protect and wants to make sure if he dies tomorrow, she's okay and she's taken care of, and this, that, and the third, and all these things. And I understand it, but it then creates a disconnect because you don't understand, just because I was raised, you know, around you and raised, around this woman that you knew and things like that, and which is my mother, but you know, the woman you loved, it does not mean I'm going to think like either of you for the rest of my life. I still have my own mind. And unfortunately, I do get my communism side from my mother. She's more of a socialist, but I do get my communicative side from her. And so that's where I get it from. But my mom is still a bit more, she's not all, she's not as deep into it as me. And so she, and I wonder at times, has she given up and just conformed herself over the years? But it doesn't matter who raised me. I'm my own person. And so it doesn't matter where I got it from. I have it, and this is where I'm at in my life. And you can either choose to try to ask your daughter why that is, why she likes it this way, how can I help? How can I support you? Okay, well, let's look more into it together and go from there. Or, okay, well, let's try to incorporate that into everyone's plan so we can, be better successful as a family as a whole. And that's not what happens because, excuse me, because once again, if you see it as I'm the father and you guys are the children, and you have to listen to me because I'm the father and I know best and I'm the head of the house, you forget to see that you're not just a father. You are still an individual first. And we are not just your children. We are still our own, individuals with our own story and our own experience of you and the life you've given us. And so it causes disconnect, it causes miscommunication, and it causes you to be unempathetic to the belief system of others. And I do believe that in any relationship, it will eventually stunt progress because you and the other person won't see eye to eye and you won't be able to get past your own beliefs enough to find a way to see eye to eye. Um, and so that's why we have parents who disown their kids for being, part of the rainbow community. Or we have, people who still think their disabled children are demons or Satan's children and things like that. Sorry, that train is louder than usual, it feels. But it's because we don't want to hear our children out. We don't want to ask them, about how they see things. And I think it becomes very generic to just say, "Oh, how's your day at school?" "Oh, okay." And then just leave it at that. We don't want any more details. We don't want to sit and hear about all our children's, you know, hoopla and things like that. And I still have to go through it with my sister, like as I've gotten older, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh my God, is this how my mother used to feel when I talked to her about boys or girls that I liked? And but the only difference is the reaction. My mom used to always just belittle me or, be very negative about my experience or just shut me down, it felt like. Instead of, talking and explaining and, you know, showcasing and things. And so, with that being said, I think it stunted how I saw the world and how I saw society because I went into the world with this view, this very paranoid view of everyone and everything. And love my stepdad to death, but he's no better. And it was always, oh, the world's gonna judge you. People are gonna judge you. Everyone's looking at you. Everyone's watching. And if you don't do this and you don't do that, then who are you gonna be? What's society gonna think of you? And it just scares you to your fucking bone. And the thing is, people do look and people do watch and people do, come to conclusions and things like that. But at the same time, we only become judgmental and penalize other people when we feel like our beliefs should be their beliefs and our way of life should be their way of life. And that is a problem when we tell kids, like when we beat kids or whoop kids for, kissing, you know, or touching and things like that, or looking at porn. It's it blows my mind because it's natural to wonder about boys. It's natural to wonder about girls. It's natural to want to kiss, and figure out why mommy and daddy like it so much. And it's natural once you figure those things out and it feels good and it tickles your brain for the first time and you realize, wow, boobies look nice and, vagina looks nice. And oh my God, that guy's body looks really nice. It's very natural to want to keep looking at those things because we are meant to be here and enjoy the pleasures of this world. And so once we find them, all we want to do is keep experiencing them. It's kind of like when you first get to go out drinking with your friends for the first time. All you want to do is keep doing that. You want to keep having those late night drinking or skipping school or, smoking or making out behind the bleachers. Like, you want to keep doing those things that excite you because it makes you feel alive and it lets you know that you're alive and you're having this experience sometimes so much that you're like, this cannot be fucking real. And it's like, no, it is though. And we should enjoy those things, but we should teach our children how to enjoy them. Not saying that they can't enjoy them, because guess what? Our kids are going to be out of our sight at least 5 minutes of the day. We're not going to be able to watch everything our kids do. It's impossible. And if we don't want to smother them or stunt them, then we shouldn't want to watch every little detail that they make and move and things and stuff like that. But we should trust ourselves and our teaching of our children enough that when we send them out into the world, we can trust them. And I think that takes explaining to our children from a very young age, I mean, a very young age, the importance of certain things, why certain things should wait a while, why they should, you should get a feel for them first, how to get a feel for them, how to respect things, how to appreciate things, and how to experience things and let them know that your experience, even though I'm describing how you may experience, still may be different from mine. The sun has risen already. It's over with now. You don't have to keep saying it. I'm talking to you. Oh, Lord. No other rooster is doing this. It's always just our rooster does this all day. No other rooster is doing this. But okay. Also, they do this so we can feed them. But my dad is not awake yet. And the last time I went in there after it rained, I almost fell on my fucking ass in the goddamn muddy chicken coop. I'm not doing it again. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Okay. Hopefully that. Oh, okay. Hold on. I'm not like. And the fact that you're so close to saying, hey, I promise all of y'all are here. Stop recording. You are there on the wrong. Get off the wrong. No, you. You. Oh. They're all waiting to be fed. They were literally all just standing there. Enjoy the sounds of nature. That's all I got for you folks. But And I guess I'll talk about the thing about my sister in another video because this one's going pretty long. I didn't think I'd be on this topic this long. But I think it is a very important topic, and it kind of does connect with all the other things I've said so far on this page because, in the video where I talked about the wrath of Cain that's placed on men that the world has to deal with, it is a parent's job to stop that. It is a parent's job to teach our sons, hey, you're not just a fucking robot. You're not just a machine. You're not just a soldier. And you're not just this, killing figure in the night. You're a human being with emotions. You matter. You matter just as much as women. Your emotions matter just as much as women. You can be sexually assaulted. You can be abused. And no, you don't want it. That whole, oh, there's no such thing as rape when it comes to men is bullshit. It's bullshit. A man's body is just as much as his own as a woman's. We should teach our children that. His boundaries are just as much his own as a woman's. And you aren't just this player. You are someone who deserves love. We call men players and we call women princesses and queens. But when a man calls himself a king, now it's a problem. If a woman should be able to see herself as a queen, so should a man see himself as a king. But we have to teach our kids what that means if they're going to call themselves a thing and how those things should carry themselves and how that reflects them. So if you're teaching your man to be a king, you should not be teaching him to be a player because not every woman is going to want to be with a player. Not every woman is going to be able, well, all women should, but not every female, okay? Not every person, because to me, I think if you're going to be a man, you have to be mature enough to be called a man. If you're going to be a woman, you have to be mature enough to be called a woman. Other than that, you're just a female or male. And I don't say boy or girl because boys and girls are fucking young kids. They're teenagers and toddlers and shit. And I don't ever want to get it mixed up and say, well, they weren't children. They were 15-year-olds. Like some fucking people. No, that was a fucking child. And no, it's not a young woman. It's just a fucking woman. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. Because then of course it gives people reason to start to change terminology and use it for their own will. And that's not what we're consenting to over here. Um, and so the thing is, kings get poisoned, kings get killed. And you need to teach your children how to put people around them who are going to love them, care for them, protect them, and teach them to not be people that go around betraying everybody. And so, no, don't teach your kid it's a dog eat dog world because then they think, oh, I have to betray before I get betrayed. And now they betrayed someone who may have never betrayed them, and that person's fucking hurt. Who knows how they may react? They may not be emotionally intelligent or mature enough or, empathetic enough. Who knows how they will react? And are you going to blame it on the other person? Or are you not going to say, hey, my child played a part in why that person, you know, probably spiraled out of control like that? And the thing is, that person should, yes, have 100% control over their own actions. Once again, if that person's parents didn't teach their children, then their children don't know. And if you don't teach your children that it's not a dog eat dog world, then your children won't know. And then they'll walk around here being a fucking menace to society whenever they get ready. And now that's what we have today is a whole bunch of people walking around thinking it's a dog eat dog world, or that, we all should be menaces and things like that. And it's not healthy or helping anybody. And it we raise our kids in paranoia, we raise them in fear, we raise them in anxiety. And the thing is, what makes it worse, and I talked about this in my Wrath the King video, is that once that anxiety is embedded in both the women and the young men, or I should say, oh, two cardinals just flew right in front of me and landed in this tree. How beautiful of them. But or we can say young girls and young boys, if we don't, you know, teach them any better, they don't know any better. And now we have a society full of young boys and young girls who weren't taught any better, who've grown up, and now we're all unempathetic to each other's stories. We're all unempathetic to the children in Palestine. We're all unempathetic to the children of Congo. We think we need the newest phone instead of boycotting. We're all unempathetic to the people of Sudan. We're all unempathetic to, you know, any atrocities in the world. um, we're all unempathetic to our enemies because we forget that they too are humans. And so that therefore really no one is our enemy. And we forget that as well. And we have now, like I said, raised children full of paranoia and anxiety. And after we send those children into the world with that anxiety and, that fear and that discomfort, only the women are now allowed to feel those things, and the men are supposed to just push him down and be a man. And it starts the cycle all over again, where that world that they think exists is confirmed because no one has heard them, no one has listened to them, no one has, been there for them. And so they start to believe that that is the way the world works because they haven't seen any different, they were never taught any different, and they have never embodied anything different because the people around them either won't let them or just say no, that's weakness, don't show that. And it is not good because then you have a bunch of, like I said, unhealed, broken people walking around here claiming to know what love is, or that they love somebody, or that they care for somebody. And we can't show that as a society. We have nothing to show that. We have no proof that we actually all care and love each other. We live in a world where homeless people exist. There's no fucking way we all care about each other or love each other, or that would fucking enrage us. I talked about prostitutes. We live in a world where people have to sell their body for money and not just because they fucking feel like it or they want to or they're having a good time. That should enrage us. Children being sex trafficked should enrage us. People, servers, having to have 2, 3 jobs and take only 1 hour class per fucking semester. That's all they have time for. Should enrage us. The injustice should enrage us if we all cared about justice. And the fact that there is injustice means at least some of us are okay with it existing and may even benefit from it. And so we can't be good neighbors. We can't be good community members. And if we can't be good neighbors and we can't be good community members, then why do we have friendships? Why am I friends with this person and not this person? Why do I feel like this person is worth more of my time than this person? Why do I feel like this person deserves my attention and care and this one doesn't? Why have I divided who's worth what? What is my friendship really based off of? And if it's based off access, if it's based off what you can do for me or what you bring to the table or how you make me feel, then my friendship with you is not because I see you as a human being and I love you and I think you deserve care and community. It's simply because you make me feel good and you do things for me and you care for me. And I'm not saying that shouldn't be a basis in a friendship. It definitely should. But I'm saying, is that friendship real if you aren't like that with everybody you meet instead of just those people? What is it specifically about those people instead of the homeless? What is it specifically about those people instead of the drug addict? Because the thing is, you wouldn't go to a random homeless person and say, hey, let's see how we can help get you off these streets. But you would help your friend from going to the streets. Why? Why is that a thing? You won't say, hey, let's see how we can help get you off drugs. But you can say, you know what, we should do like a rehabilitation or like an intervention for our friend who's diving into drugs. What about the other people? What about those people? And you can say, well, they have friends, they have family. Where are their friends? Where are their family? What if they don't? And so what if they do? What if they're not helping? It doesn't matter who they have or who they may not have. You exist and you can help. And nothing changes that fact either. And so that is a thing. That's a question. And if we can't be real about why we choose certain people over others, then we can't be real about our own biases, about our own um, discretions of character or discrepancies in character, we can say. And if we can't do that, we can't ever actually become better and become healed. And then we can't ever empathize with other people's stories. We can't ever empathize with other people as individuals. And so that means when our kid tells us about their day or tells us about their silly little teenage drama, we won't be able to understand that they are just a kid and they don't know any better. When they mess up in school or they aren't getting good grades, instead of us beating the shit out of them, we won't remember that this kid has never done algebra before that they remember. They've never sat in a trigonometry class before. They've never learned their ABCs before that they remember. And so, therefore, I can't beat the shit out of them and expect them to get it if they've never done this before. And not only that, it doesn't guarantee beating the shit out of them will make it better and not make it worse. So we have to ask, why is this happening? If our kids are talkative in school, we shouldn't beat them. We shouldn't, punish them for that. And we should just see it as my kid has a talkative personality. My kid is social. My kids love talking to people. They love connecting with people. And there's nothing wrong with that. And we should remind people that it's not normal to sit in a goddamn classroom all fucking day listening to somebody tell you something. It's not normal. That's not normal interaction. That's not normal social interaction to do. And so kids are free spirits that we're trying to conform to a society that isn't. And when they don't conform, we punish them instead of seeing them as someone who literally just got sent here by God a few days ago, a few weeks ago, a few years ago, and they don't know what the fuck is going on. And we're asking them to dim that light, and we're asking them to not be hyper. We're asking them to not want to play with their friends all the time or talk to their friends all the time. We're asking them to not want to kiss and touch really nice squishy boobs. We're asking them to not want to go play in the rain or the mud puddle or to drive really fast cars. No one should be driving fast, but we're asking them to not chase excitement. And when they do, we just punish or penalize them for it instead of remembering it's natural. And when it comes to excitement, it's fucking biological, it's chemical. And so, in fact, if anything, we should expect these things of our children and be ready to protect them and help them as it goes and as it comes. And so we start to forget that they are, like I said, humans and individuals. And that's what we do in our friendships. The moment someone doesn't do anything the way we want in a friendship, we're done being their friend. The moment someone doesn't, listen to us, or we feel like, oh, I used to do this and I used to shop here and wear this and do this, and you don't do that with anymore, we just feel like we should just throw them aside or cast them aside. The moment our friend makes a mistake, or they go through a depressive phase, or they don't want to go out as much anymore, we're just like, okay, well, we're not friends anymore. Like, we just cast them aside. The moment they get depressed and they start smelling or stop taking care of themselves or stop taking care of their home, for a while we say, oh, we'll be there for you, yeah, no problem. But when it takes 2 years, when it takes 3 years, when it takes 4 years, all of a sudden, now that's just too fucking long and I don't want to play with you anymore. And we forget that what may take us 3 weeks and a good coffee may take people 10 years, 15 years. And so you can't decide who you want your kid to be and discard them if they aren't that, or punish them if they aren't that. And you can't decide who you want your friends or your loved ones to be, and what timeline they should be that in, and then discard them or disown them or punish them if they aren't that. The only thing you can do is decide, are am I going to be here for this person no matter what? Am I going to be here for my child no matter what it is they're blabbing about, no matter who it is they like, no matter what kind of music they want to listen to, no matter what they like to wear, no matter what they want to get into? Not saying you should encourage certain habits. No. Some you should even discourage. But you should never give up. You should never give up. And you have to decide that. You have to decide that people are worth believing in and fighting for and loving and seeing as individuals with their own stories, even if they are your children. And if you can do that with your children, you can do that as a friend, because you understand the health and life benefits of such a comrade or person in your corner, quote unquote. But if you can't do that with your children, you can't do that in your friendships, because that's not really who you are. And if you can do it in friendships, but not at home, then you're not really doing it. You're just portraying it. And I do think that there is a bit of performance that goes into going out in public. You know, sometimes we don't wash our, well, not, we don't wash our ass for 3 days, but if you're in a depressive phase, you may not want to wash your ass for like 2, 3 days. You may not want to brush your teeth. You may not even want to get out of bed. If you do, you just go to get your fucking pizza from the door and then go right back to doing what you were doing, whatever the case may be. But maybe you have an interview the next day, or maybe, your friends somehow talked you into going out, and now all of a sudden you're getting up, you're getting ready, but your house looks like crap, everything looks like crap. You actually feel like crap, but you're there, you're smiling, you're taking pictures as if everything is okay, as if your dog didn't just die, your mom and dad didn't just get divorced, your sister didn't just survive her fucking third overdose attempt. Like, you're just fucking going through it, but you're showing up differently. And once again, I think that is because we all have in the back of our mind that belief that the world just may not understand. And so we have to show up a certain way to make sure we're accepted, to make sure we can survive in society, because if not, we'll be shunned. And I think it only makes the situation worse because if we're too busy performing, when do we ever have time to sit down and actually be ourselves, to sit down and actually relax, to sit down and actually reach down very deep and gain whatever energy we have left to even start to try to rebuild? And so we have to stop asking people to perform for us. We have to stop asking our children to perform for society. We have to stop asking our friends to show up and perform for society. And actually, I guess this can kind of go into, maybe I got 10, 15 minutes left. This can kind of go into what my sister asked me about. She said there was this boy at school who liked her, and, she, didn't know if she wanted to give him a chance or not. But the main reason she didn't want to is because she was scared of what her friends would think. And I had to just let her know, ma'am, if you will answer right now to your friends for your decisions, you will be doing that for the rest of your life. Do whatever the fuck you want. Be whatever the fuck you want. Be with whoever the fuck you want. And don't ever explain shit to any fucking body unless you want to. It's nice to explain sometimes. It's good. It's a good communication factor. But guess what? You don't have to, number one. But number two, you can spend your life complaining no matter what. And if somebody just doesn't have the capacity to see where you're coming from, you will waste your fucking time. So I have learned the balance is sticking around people who don't ask you to explain yourself, who don't ask you for a report card. They just let you show up as is and understand you accordingly and try to help where they can. And that's it. And yes, that may mean people may not always look how you want them to look. They may not always turn out the way you want them to turn out or show up the way you want them to turn out. There's a whole bunch of things that may go into that. But once again, you don't have to have deep, close relationships with everyone all the time. Sometimes in relationships and friendships, you guys will be the closest you've ever been, and then sometimes you won't talk for months. Sometimes right after that, you're back being close for years and years, and then hey, all of a sudden we're busy, lives are going different ways. We haven't talked in a few more months or another year, and then next thing you know, you're back on it. In the past, that was actually very natural. People would travel months before they got to see somebody because planes weren't around, trains weren't around, cars weren't around. None of that stuff was around. And so you had to wait till your letter traveled weeks and months by sea or by horse to the destination. You had to wait weeks or months until you traveled by horse and by camp to your destination before you got to see people. Right. It wasn't always so much access to each other. And we weren't always demanding so much of each other because we understood. We understood. And so when you start to have these hierarchies in life, it separates people from understanding one another because no one is living the same life anymore. and it causes disconnect. And so we have to get back to remembering that no matter what, other people are just trying to, they're just humans having a human experience. We can't even say other people are just trying to make it like I am. We can't say other people, you know, are just trying to do the best with what they have and expect them to do the same as we do because they don't have what we have. They may have more, they may have less. And even the ones who have exactly what we have still don't have our perspective. And so, and we don't have theirs. So we have to stop placing our projection ideations on other people, including our children, including our friends, and let them show up as they are and love them. That's it. That's all. And not love them how we want to be loved. Love them how they ask to be loved. I used to tell my mom all the time, if you would just actually stop beating my ass for 5 seconds and just explain to me, I probably will give you the results you're looking for. And she never understood that. She never got it. But I told her I don't answer well to violence and it doesn't help me. But meanwhile, my brother, you could explain it to him in 50 different languages, and an ass whooping is really all it ever took, unfortunately. And I don't believe in, spanking children, but I understand that sometimes some children need to be spanked because my brother, it does not matter how many times you spoke to him until you whooped his ass, he was not going to take you serious. It just, it was just the way he was, unfortunately. But meanwhile, all I needed was just an explanation. But my mom was so quick to whip my ass. And she would give him like 50 different chances. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And her reasoning was always, because you're the oldest and you're supposed to lead by example. But no, I'm telling you how I can be of best use to you, mother, and to this household, and to myself, and show up the best that I can. But once again, when you don't see your children as children who have their own minds and they can't possibly know what they want because they're children, then we do a disservice to the progress we can make with our children as a relationship, but also as individuals. And I'm a firm believer that children can teach us things. And a child can teach you as much as an old wise person can. You just have to be willing to listen to a child and realize that you may not be right about everything just because you're an adult. Um, and so when you can't do that, like I said, and you can't have those experiences and that respect, you forget that children grow into adults and you forget that your friends and the people around you used to be children. And you forget that they should be loved as children, not as adults. Never love an adult as an adult because no adult is a child or no adult is an adult. All adults are childs. We're still children. I am still the same child I was. I am now just 28 years old somehow, some way. But I'm still very much that same teenager, that same young toddler. I like some of the same foods. I still watch some of the same comfort shows. Um, I still like being snuggled in like all kind of furry blankets and things, which was a habit of mine as a kid. Loved blankets, loved a cold room with lots of blankets. I still very much love finger painting. I haven't done it in such a long time, but it's still one of my favorite pastimes when I do get a chance to do it. There's just so many different things. And that's why I encourage people to connect with their inner child. Because once you do that and you realize that you once were a child too, it helps you remember that, whoa, my neighbor used to be a child. My grandma used to be a child. My mom, my coworker, my friend, my best friend's mom used to be a child. It helps you remember that before everyone was an adult, before everyone was a parent or a grandparent or a janitor or whatever, they were once just babies who got toy trucks and maybe Barbie dolls for Christmas. And they used to be happy unwrapping them, just as you probably were. And the worst part is some of them used to be kids who had no experience like that. They had an even worse experience. But either way, we should know empathy and show empathy. And if we can't have that in our friendships and embody that in our relationships as adults in our waking everyday life, then we can't have it with our children. Oh my God, a blue jay. I wonder where it's trying to go because it is looking around as if it's looking for something. It's eating something out of the flower bin. But, and once again, if we do that with our friends but not our children, then we have to ask, why do I only have empathy with my friends and not my children? And if we have empathy with only our children but not our friends, we have to ask ourselves why that is. And if you find yourself being very picky with your empathy, ask, why don't I feel like this person deserves empathy? And why can I so easily turn it off and on? Why isn't empathy something I require to be me? Because I understand the importance of it. And it is that deep. And so for empaths, it really, really is that deep. Um, and that's what an empath is, empathy. Like we feel everything, we understand everything because we understand everyone used to be children. So when someone cries, we cry with them because we understand how we used to cry as a child and how we cry now. And we understand that they're just a crying child. When someone dies, we feel our own death and we feel their death because we understand children die. Adults who were once children die. Children who are now adults or children who are now bigger children at the age of 32 and 28 and die. And it bothers us. And just, it does make us feel connected to everything. But once again, everything isn't always happy and rainbows and sunshine. So when the things are bad, we feel them just as much, and we feel them not double, not triple, but we feel them for every human on earth. And it rips us up inside. Like we cannot feel things small at all, at all. And so there are downsides, I think, to being an empath. I was watching Secret Life of the Bees the other day, and I realized, like, I used to always think I was definitely like a bit of August mixed with June, and I still am. Sometimes I'm hard to love like June, but sometimes I'm very warm and welcoming like August. But I definitely am more so May than anything. Like, she was very welcoming, but she had a lot of emotion and she felt everything. And that is me. I cry all the time. I feel everything all the time. And I just can't help it. And sometimes it's exhausting, and sometimes I just need sleep and I just need rest, and I don't want to go outside and I don't want to be around people, um, because I will feel whatever they're feeling, and whatever I overhear from them, I will think about forever and ever, and days and days and days and days. And it causes you to overthink. It's just a lot. But when you teach your children how to be a empath, which I have began to learn a bit these past maybe 2 to 3 years, um, more than I ever did. I think you it becomes easier, I should say. It doesn't become easy, but it becomes easier in the sense the downsides are always there, but teach your kids how to have self-care, how to take care of themselves, how to unwind, and stop forcing your kids to be these social creatures, and teaching, stop forcing them to network if they don't want to network, and stop forcing them to be in society if they don't want to be in society at times. Teach your kids it's okay sometimes to take time for yourself, how to take time for themselves, and how to learn what they love doing to calm themselves down. But that does start with first seeing your kids as individuals. And then if you can teach your kids that you can help a friend who needs healing. And if you can help a friend who needs healing and teach them this, then there's no reason a kid shouldn't know it, because they'll grow into an adult one day who will need it. And they may be the friend who can then help a friend. And that is how we raised healed children who are healed adults. And then we have a healed world. That's my piece. Hmm. That's my piece. Oh.